נפש הרחמן משוך עבדך הרצונך ירוץ עבדך כמו אייל ישתחווה אל מול הדרך ירב לו ידידותך מנופת צוף וכל טעם אדוני עזיב העולם נפשי חולת אהבתך אנא אלנה רפנה לה בהרות לה נועם זיווך אז תתחזק ותתרפא והייתה לך שפעת עולם ותגמו רחמך וחוס לה בין אוהבך כי זה כמה נכסוף נכסף לראות בתפארת עוזך אנא אלי מחמד ליבי חושנה ואל תתעלם יגאלנה יפרוס חביב עלי את סוכת שלומך תאיר ארץ מכבודך נגילה ונשמחה בך מהר אהוב כי במועד וחונני כי מעולם nay 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 Nikad ma'afanav b'toda b'zmirot nariya lo ki
Page 16.
40 shana hakud v'dor v'oram torei levahem v'hem lo yadu dirachai asher nishmati כפי, אם יבואון אל מנוחתי. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו. כי גדול אדוני ולעולם מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים, כי כל אלוהי העמים אלילים, ואדוני שמיים עשה, הוד והדר לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו. הבו לאדוני משפחות עמים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו. שאו מנחה ובכל חצרותיו, השתחוו לאדוני בחדרת קודש, חילו מפניו כל הארץ. אמרו בגויים אדוני מלך, הבטיחון תבל בעל תימו, וידין עמים בני שערים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ. ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו. אז ירננו כל עצי לפני אדוני, כי היווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט טבע בצדק, ועמים באמונתו. ינאי לה 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 ינאי 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 or 51. Adonai malach tagel haaretz, yismechu im rabim, hanan v'rafel sevivav, tzedek mishpat mechon kiso. Shama v'tismach Zion v'tagelna Benot Yehuda Leman Mishpatecha Adonai Ki Ata Adonai Elyon Al Kol Mi'al Rashayim Yatzilein Uzaru ala Tzadik Hu Yishrei Lev Simcha Simchut tzadikim b'Adonai, v'hodu lezecher kodsho. This was your Adonai Shir Chadash Kinam Ratzon. Hode Adonai לפני אדוני קיבה קיבה לשפוט הארץ ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים במי שרי אדוני מלאך ירגזו עמים יהושע קרובים תנו את הארץ אדוני בציון גדול ורמהו על כל העמים Moshe v'Aaron v'Chovnav v'Shmuel b'Korei Shemo Korim el Adonai v'hu ya'anem be'amud anan v'yidaber aleihem shamru edotav v'chok natan lamo Adonai Eloheinu Atahanitam El Nose Aita Lahem V'nokem Alalilotam Haromimu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtachavu Lehar Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Eli, havu l'Adonai, kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai, kevod shemo ishtachavu l'Adonai, b'chadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim Adonai al mayim rabim kol Adonai ba'koach kol Adonai Behadar kol Adonai Shover arazim v'yishaber Adonai Et arze halvanon v'yarkidem kemo egel Levanon v'sirion kemo ven re'eni kol Adonai Chotev lavotesh kol Adonai Yachu midbar Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh kol Adonai Cholel hayalot Vayechesof Yeharot Ulechalo Kulo Omer Kavod Adonai Lama Buya Shava Yeshev Adonai Melech Leholam Adonai Oz Le'amoite Adonai Yavarech Damo Vashalom Hayai Hay 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 bekoach gedulat yemincha tativ serura kaberin atamcha sagavenu taharenu nora Anna bekoach gedulat yemincha tativ serura kaberin atamcha sagavenu taharenu nora Anna bekoach gedulat yemincha tatit zerura kaberina rinatamecha sagavenu taharenu nora Hi, 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 Roshem kavod malchuto leolam va'ed 21 or 56 Lecha dodi likakala yala 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 Ne Shabbat nikabela hai hai Lecha dodi likakala yala 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 Ne Shabbat nikabela Shamu v'zachu b'dibur echad Hishmi'anu el hamyuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad L'shem multiferet v'litila Alecha dodi likrat kala Yalala 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 B'nei Shabbat Nikabela hai hai Lecha dodi likrat kala Yalala 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 B'nei Shabbat Nikabela likrat Shabbat Lechu v'necha Ki mikor ha-beracha merosh mikedem nesuka sof mahaseh b'masher vatila Alecha dodi likrat kala yala 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 B'nei Shabbat nikabela hai hai Lecha dodi likrat kala yala 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 B'nei Shabbat nikabela mitat melech himilucha kumitzi'im mitoch hafeka harav lach shevet b'emet hamacha v'hu yachamo halayichem la halecha dodi likrat kala yala 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 B'nei Shabbat nikabela hai hai Lecha dodi likrat kala yala 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 B'nei Shabbat nikabela hitna ari me'afar kumi lishi b'gdei tifatechami ayad ben yisha beit halakmi kor ve'el nafshi ge'ala Lecha dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nikabela hitoreri kiva ore kumi ori shir daveri kivod Adonai alayit niglale chadodi לקראת קהל פני שבת נקבלה לא תבושי ולא תרחמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי בך יחסו אני עמי בני ותעיר אל תהילה לך דודי לי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו למשיסה שועשי ורחקו כל מבלי יסיס עלי אלוהי כמסוס חתן על כלה לך דודי לי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תעריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה וצהולה תוך אמונה סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה 23 or 59 מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון ולזמר לשמך העליון להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות עלי עשו ועלי נבל עלי הגיון בכינור מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון כי חנתני מה גדלו מעשיך עוד עמקו משפטיך כי הנה צדיקת המעריפה כהרז בלבנון יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו Yashar Adonai Suri Velo Avlatabo Mikalot Mahai Adirim, adirim, mishpereyam. Mikolot ma'im, ma'im rabim. Adirim, adirim, mishpereyam. Adir b'marom, ein, ein, ein. Adir b'marom, ein, ein, ein. Adir b'marom, Adonai. Lai, 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 lai. Adir b'marom, ein, ein, ein. Adir b'marom, ein, ein, ein. Adir b'marom, Adonai. Edotechem nemnu meod, lebeitcha na b'kodesh, Adonai, v'yorech yamin.
This week we observe the Yartzeiton of Samuel Cohen, father of Larry Cohen, Aaron Purkis, father of Daniel Purkis, Charlotte Binger, mother of Leah Lenny, and Inez DeJoya, mother of Andrea Rothberg. May their memories and the memories of all those whom we recall be blessings. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 24. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shelama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. O say shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone. Again, it sort of has a summer night feel, though it's not. Though that's nature's first green is gold. That's right there. That's what that poem's talking about, I think. This week we get the first of two major sections in the Torah that talk about forbidden and permitted animals, laws of kashrut, and I want to just share a few thoughts about that. So there's a book called Purity and Danger by an important English anthropologist named Mary Douglas, and she died a couple of years ago, but it's a real classic in anthropology of religion called Purity and Danger. And I was assigned this book for the first time. I've read it many times, but I was assigned it for the first time when I was an undergraduate, and the book is very wonderful and important, and I'll share a bit about it in a second. But the first thing that struck me about the book, and this has always impressed me, is so it was published for the first time in I think the late 1970s, and then it was republished in the 1990s, at which point Mary Douglas had reconsidered. And so the new book is published with this first chapter, which recants basically all of the other book. And it always impressed me that, and this is a really important, famous book. This made her career. And it always sort of impressed me that, okay, here's this famous, great anthropologist, and here's this book that made her career that's on syllabi. And then she felt like, when it came out again, she recanted. It always impressed me. I didn't know her personally. She died a couple of years ago, I believe. But that always impressed me. And anyways, in Purity and Danger, she talks about what she calls the Levitican abominations, which are the animals that are unclean. And she uses it as an example of what she thinks is a broader cultural phenomenon about assigning making some things pure and making some things dangerous or gross. And one of her other prominent examples in the book that I always remembered was, if you go into someone's house and you see a dirty plate in the kitchen sink, you think, oh, they had lunch. But if you see a dirty plate in the bathroom sink, you think, ew, gross, and they're all sinks, right? There's actually, there's a funny Seinfeld about it, where George is turned in at the health club for peeing in the shower. And he says, they're all drains! And then, he says, I'll call a plumber right now. Right? But there's something, right? And this is her point about purity and danger, that society is organized by this way in important ways. And she thought that the Levitican abominations functioned that way, right? They constituted certain things that were for us, and therefore clean and safe, and certain gross things like lobsters, which are creepy crawly, and that are not for us, and therefore unclean and dangerous. And this is how she understood the laws of kashrut, and how she presented them anthropologically. And then she recanted. And she recanted based on her encounter with some of the latest in biblical scholarship, some of which understands the laws of kashrut quite differently. And she says in her introduction, in her introduction to the new volume, she says that based on her conversations with some of her colleagues in biblical studies, she's reconsidered. And she presents a very different anthropology of where kashrut comes from. And she argues there that the relationship between meat animals and the people that eat them is supposed to be an instantiation, a recapitulation, or a symbolic example of the relationship between God and the people. So just as God shelters us and gives us water and feeds us and ultimately takes our lives, so too the shepherd loves his or her animals and shelters them and feeds them and cares for them, and then ultimately has the right to take their lives. And so she says, actually, the animals that, by and large, at least the pastured animals, the land animals, which are mostly what they're eating, the land animals are, symbolic of this very deep relationship. And she says it's not that pigs are abominable, it's rather that it's abominable to harm them. Because basically we don't have a right to harm them, because those aren't our flocks. Lions aren't part of our flock. And all of these other unkosher, and the dogs are not part of our flock. We don't care for them in the same way. And therefore, they're not gross in and of themselves. What's gross is the idea that we could be so foolish that we could take the life of a pig, which we have no right to do. And it's what's that? No, because pigs aren't pastured animals in the same way that goats are, and we love shepherds, right? All of our heroes are shepherds. And so there's a beautiful passage in the Gemara that gets at this, and this is the last thing I want to share. They say, there's a verse in Psalms that says, Ladonai ha'aretz umloah, the earth and all that fills it belongs to God. And there's another verse in Psalms that says, Hashamayim shamayim ladonai, the heavens belong to God, v'ha'aretz natan livnei adam, but the earth is given over to the people, right? So one verse says everything is God's, and another verse says, well, the heavens are God's, but the land is ours. And so the rabbis of the Talmud, in typical Talmudic fashion, say, what gives? They don't like when things disagree like that. And they say, one is lifnei bracha, one is before you made a bracha, and one is acharei bracha, one is after you made a bracha. Okay? So what is this real? And they go on to say that one who eats something and doesn't first make a bracha is guilty of something called me'ilah. So me'ilah is a technical halachic term that means the misappropriation of sacred property. So if there's a cup that belongs to the temple, you can't just take that cup and, drink a Coke out of it. That is not temple service. That is a misappropriation of sacred property, and it's a serious crime. So too, says the Gemara, is what you're guilty of if you don't make a bracha before you bite into that apple. So let's think about what this really means. What it really means is that the world, everything we consume in its natural state, is just is sacred property, is just throbbing with holiness, just so inexorably and beautifully holy that we could not dream of taking a bite of it and chewing it up and pooping it out. Right? But because we have to eat, there are certain kinds of animals and certain kinds of food that we make an accommodation for. And God says those foods, those things you can make less holy. Those things you can make profane. You can make chol or chulin, or, if you go see the street carts, halal. Halal meat means unholy meat. It means meat that has been taken from its natural state of just throbbing with divine energy and made normal so that you can eat it. And it yields, I think, a very, very different and beautiful conception of what the world is around us, right? I mean, and this book, going back to Purity and Danger, was really important and formative for me in a variety of ways. In part because the book itself, I think, is very important and does explain a lot, and in part because it was instructive to me about, if you really reconsider and think you're wrong, you should say so. And in part because when she recants and when she presents these laws in a different way, right, it solves a problem. Why, if all of these animals are so gross, did God create them? Right? That's a theological problem. The answer is they aren't gross. The answer is they are so holy and we have no right to make them unholy. They're there for their own reasons and not for us. So I encourage all of you to make a bracha the next time you eat an apple. Make it unholy so you can eat it. We'll continue with Ma'ariv in just a moment, which is on page 28. Ma'avir yom u'mevi laila, ma'avir ben yom u'men laila, Adonai tzivot shemo elcha v'kayam, tamidim lo chaleinu le'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, amari v'aravim, avadonai. Page 29 or 65. Kiyem chayenu ve'orech yameinu ve'nege yomam v'laila ve'abatecha al tasir mimenu le'olami baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיום שמות ישמעו לשלוחי בצדו. Adonai Elohechem Emed. 32 or 70. Malchuto beratzon giblu aleihem Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira v'simcha rabba v'amiru chulam hoi michamocha b'helim Adonai michamocha Bokeh lifnei Moshe ze Elianu v'amiru Adonai yimloch le'olam Chazak mimenu Baruch Adonai Gahal Yisrael Ashkiveinu Adonai Adonai Shalom Amidenu. 33 or 73. Shmor Seitenu Voenu Lechaim Ol Shalom Yatavi Adolam Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shalomecha Baruch Atah Adonai Haporei Sukat Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Amo Yisrael Ve'al Yerushalayim. Please rise. Ve'shameru B'nei Yisrael Het HaShabbat La'asot Et HaShabbat Ledorotam Berit Olam Hay 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 Beini Uven Bnei Yisrael Oti Le'olam Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Et HaShamayim V'et HaHaretz U'bayom HaShevi Shabbat V'yinaf Shin Kadal V'Kadash Shemei Rabam Ve'alma Divra Kinutei Ve'amlich Malchutei V'chayechonu Yomechonu V'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvizman Karev Imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabban Vora Melach, Vipar, Vitram, Vidasa, Vidandar, Vidale, Vidalash, Medkucha, Brechu, Leila, Mikol, Berchata, Vashirata, Tushbechata, Nechemata, Yamiran, Bealma, Vimru. Amen. The Silent Amidah is page 35 or 76. This is on page 37. Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'yitramam, yitbarach ve'yitramam, shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam, ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'yitramam, yitbarach ve'yitramam, shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam, page 47 or 89. Vayachulu hashamayim be'haaretz v'chol tzivam, vaychal Elohim bayom hashvi melachto asher asa, vayishbot bayom hashvi mikol melachto asher asa, vayvarech Elohim et yom hashivi, vaykadesh oto, ki bo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Hayel HaGadol HaYuav HaNorai El Elyon Konei Shamayim Ve'Haaretz Magen Avot Bidbaro Mechayim Eitim B'Mamaro Hayel HaKadosh She'ein Kamohu Hameniach le'amo b'yom Shabbat kodsho, ki bam ratza la'aniach lahem, lefanav nabod b'yira b'facha, v'nodeh lishmo b'chol yom tamid, me'ein haberachot el eodot Adon HaShalom, Mekadesh HaShabbat U'Barech Shvi U'Meniag Mikdusha Le'amedu Shnei Oneg Zecher Le'Maaseh Bereshit Eloheinu V'Lai Avotenu Retzevim Nuchatenu Kadeshenu B'Mitzvotecha V'Ten Chelkenu B'Toratecha Sabenu Mituvecha V'Samechenu B'Shuatecha V'Tahir Libenu Le'Obdecha Be'emet V'Anchilenu Adonai Eloheinu B'Avav Ratzon Shabbat Kodshecha V'Yanuchu V'Yisrael Mekadeshei Shemecha Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 48 or 92. Yikara v'yikara shemei rabba ve'amadi v'rakiru devim lich malchutei v'cheichonu yom yichonu chaydecho be'Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv imru amen yehi shmei rabba mevorach ve'olam olal me'al mayam Yibarach v'shabach v'bar v'drom v'naseh v'tadar v'talei v'talash medkudsha v'chulei mikol v'chata v'shirata tush v'chata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen tikabel tzotanu v'aton d'chol Yisrael kodam v'shmaya v'imru amen yishlam rin shemaya v'chaim alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen oseh shalom v'imru mavu yaseh shalom alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yishvei tevel v'imru amen. Someone to make kiddush? Shane, yeah. Well, if you haven't done it, the word will help you out if you need.
Get some wine for your trouble.
We're with you. Yeah. There it is over there. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav banu v'shavat kosho v'havav ratzonim chilanu zikaron l'maaseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabat kodshecha be'ahava u'b'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 51 or 98. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol latet gedula leyotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoye haratzot velo samanu kemishbechot adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegoraleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim ubishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shenu shemayim v'yosed ar ma'at shabbat kavod כי המלכות שלך ילמד תמלוך בכבוד, כך כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Mourner's Kaddish, page 52 or page 101. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabba ve'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei Dekucha, Brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. O say shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you. I get to make the announcements today. It's because Kiddush is sponsored this week by Peter and Andrea Rothberg in memory of Peter's mother, Esther Rothberg, and Andrea's parents, Al and Inez DeJoya. Sponsors are needed for April 23rd and May 21st, and contact Andrea Rothberg. And thank you again to Peter and Andrea for sponsoring. Adult education is continuing with me. 7:30s, though not this week. This week is Hebrew High School. Usually on 7:30s we get together and study the life of David. We're about halfway through his life. Come hop on if you haven't joined us before. It's a very interesting life and a very interesting class. I also teach on Mishnah online on Wednesday afternoons at 12 o'clock, and we're studying Lost and Found in the Mishnah, Bava Metzia, so come join for that. That's on Zoom, and the links are in the emails. There will also be ahead of Pesach on April 5th and April 12th. I'm going to offer a little brush up on Hilchot Pesach, the laws of Pesach. Pesach is certainly the most ritually and halachically involved of the Jewish holidays, at least traditionally, and so we'll explore that a little bit on Tuesday, April 5th, and then again on Tuesday, April 12th. If you'd like to sell your chametz, you can appoint me as your emissary to sell your chametz. You need to either sign the little form, which I have up in my office after Shabbat, or email me after Shabbat and say, Rabbi, I want you to sell my chametz, and here's where it will be stored. So it needs your name and your address, and I would be happy to add you to the list. That could be on the website. It's a good idea, Mario. The March book group will be this Sunday, March 27th at 11 a.m. on Zoom. Where they're reading America's Jewish Women, A History from Colonial Times to Today by Pamela S. Nardell. And contact Barbara Saunders Adams about that. We have another First Friday dinner coming up on Friday, April 1st. RSVPs are requested to assist us in planning and ordering the right amount of food, so please contact Julia about that if you want to come. Hopefully we'll get another big crowd like we did last time. It was really wonderful. There's many social action things going on right now. We're continuing to sponsor 2 refugee families who are in New Rochelle. If you're interested in that effort, contact me or Michael Dvorkin or Maria or Adams Abe's house. And there's lots of work to do, and many hands make light work. We also have the Midnight Run, which is coming up on Saturday, April 9th. Michael Dvorkin, again, is organizing that. We'll meet at the PJC at 8 p.m. to load cars with clothing and blankets and personal care items and food, and depart for NYC around 9 p.m. Donations and volunteers are both needed, so again, contact Michael about that. We have something called Project Hope coming up, which is volunteers are needed to deliver packages on the morning of Sunday, April 3rd, to elderly Jewish residents of the Bronx. And once again, the amazing Michael Dvorkin is organizing that, so please contact Michael if you're interested in that. And finally, PJC Library is having a pruning day. Our library is overflowing with old editions, and we need space for new books. Join Barbara Saunders Adams and Liz Zetzo on Sunday, April 24th at 1:15 p.m. to sort through and take home gently used books. All are welcome. Any other announcements? We've got a lot going on. As always, Pesach's coming up. Very exciting. And we'll finish up with Yigdal, which is on page... It's on page... What page is it on? 53. Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach nimtza v'hein eid hel b'tziyuto echad v'hein yachid ke'yichudo nelam v'gam ein sof le'achduto hein lo demot haguf v'hein no guf lo na'arach elav kedushato Kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon v'hein reshit l'reshito chino adono lama v'chol notzar yoreg gedulato malchuto shefa nevuato netano el anshe segulato v'tifarto lokam be'Yisrael kemosheod navi umabi tet munato Torah temet natan lemohel al yad nevio neman beito Tamir Dato Leolamim Lezulaton Sofe Veyodea Setarenu Mabi Lesof Dabar Berkad Mato Gomel Ish Chesed Gimme Follow Noten Lirasha Rakarishato Yishlach Leketziam Mishichenu Liftod Mechake Ketzeshuato Mitim Yechayel Beherov Chasto Baruch Adeyad Shem Tehilato Hey Mitim Yechayel Beherov Chasto Baruch Adeyad Shem Tehilato. Good Shabbos everyone.